what I need you to kind of look at is the new study guide has dropped. It's there, it's ready for you. And the key writing assignment this time, and you can't escape it. So how many of you have EQ essays that you get to drop one? Okay, you can't drop more than one, but you can drop one. This class has quite a few, and I miss people. I'm sorry. There's other people I should have said, hey, take one, you know. And my apologies there. I'll, you know, but anyway, point is that yeah, why don't we just do this? No, that would be unfair too. So I'm going to stop right there. You only get one EQ essay, okay, that you can take off. But, right, the one that matters this time is the one marked R, which is the research of the primary source document. Now, how many had Mr. Christensen down at the other school for your U.S. history? Then you know all about primary source document analysis, right? And so that's the kind of writing I expect, is what he excels at teaching you how to do. And I'm looking for it now out of you. And I know you'll do it. You'll do a great job. Your writing skills are never in question. But a lot of times people throw in a lot of, let's put it this way, surplus words just to fill in the word count. And in your past life, junior high, whatever, as long as you made it long enough and used full, complete sentences and sounded reasonably intelligent, put a big word or two in, it didn't matter what you said. They were just happy that you got it finished. This is different, you know. You can do that with the opinion essays, the EQ ones. You can basically express yourself, and I want that. You know, I want you to do that kind of expression. This is different. This is academic writing, like Mr. Christensen taught you to do when you're looking at a primary source document. First thing I would do was try to find Madison's thesis statement. And then I'd take that, and that would be my building block, because it's there, but it's not at the top of the page. Okay. So at any rate, have good luck with that one. And that one's really, really, really important. Okay. So now we're going to share the screen here, and hopefully it's all done. And we're going to now do the Republic. Okay. So this is one of those lectures that I think is fundamental and pivotal. So I hope you're paying attention. I know a lot of people have a lot of other things to do, and of course you're free to do whatever you want, right? Nobody can force you to do anything. And yeah, so just, you know, if you want to listen, great. If you don't want to listen, you can listen to it on the recording, because there will be in a future study guide reason to know this. So in the Republic, it's just a fascinating dialogue. It's divided into parts, right? And you have to understand too that he's discussing this with sophists and demagogues and whatever, and they're having, basically it's a play. And so all these characters.
Please excuse the interruption. Bell Photography is only here for about 1 more hour. So if there are any students that need their pictures retaken, please send them down. Thank you.
Okay. So he's having this great dialogue, and there's different parts of it. And one of the things that we get into is this idea of the ship of state. The idea that, and this, by the way, is a metaphor that we use in American politics a lot, especially late 1800s and so on, that we have a ship of state that we have to guide in the right direction. It was a big metaphor for Teddy Roosevelt, for example. And it became very popular late 1800s. But the ship of state needs to be guided in the right direction through the storms, you know, like the Civil War, like the current pandemic, all that kind of stuff. And there's philosophers that are responsible to guide that ship of state. But then there's also people who have to guard the state. They have to defend it. So we're looking at the guardian class. So you got philosopher class, guardian class. Guardians could include, for example, the military. It could also include other defenders such as the police force or the firefighters, or even, I would even put EMTs in this, or even social workers who have to go and break up conflicts and try to, you know, help people through different problems. But then you also have the producer class. And the producers, they're really important. I mean, they're the ones that feed everybody. So agriculture obviously was a big part of that, but it's also the business and merchants and everybody that creates the economy. And so he's looking at all of these and saying, we're asking the wrong question. When we ask the question, I'm paraphrasing here, but when we ask the question, what is the best form of government? That's not the question to ask. The question is how can any of those governments be made to work successfully? whether it be an autocracy, a democracy, whether it be a monarchy, an aristocracy, an oligarchy, on and on and on, the list goes on, theocracy, how can they all succeed? So we're kind of playing with this a little bit, and I'm going to kind of take a look at this, the philosophers, guardians, the business class, the merchants, that kind of thing. And let's do some experiments, right? Do you need leadership? Yeah. And that leadership's got to come from some source somewhere. Can you give me a list of the people that are the philosophers that guide our country today? I'm wording this a little different than I did the last period because I got myself into a little bit of some corners here, but let's ask. Give me an example. Who are they? Who are the philosophers that guide the country today? Show of hands. Yeah. You'd have to include them, right? Is Joe Biden guiding the ship of state? Is he a philosopher? Yeah, there's the philosophy of Biden. It's definitely blue collar, working class, whatever. What more about Biden? Yeah, go ahead. Sure, absolutely. Any other philosophers other than Biden? Yeah. Yeah, they turn themselves into philosophers. They do. I've watched this over and over again. This came out last period, which kind of astounded me because it's a new answer this year that we've never heard before. Is Elon Musk, in a sense, a futurist kind of philosopher guiding the ships around the world, the ships of state, through his influence?
Yes, that's a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, just was doing. Hey, how about this? How about Mark Zuckerberg? The philosophy of Zuckerberg, that we're going to create all these communities and somehow the world's going to be a better place. And yet I'm going to make $1 billion doing it every day. Is he a guiding philosophical force in moving countries one way or the other? And that was new last period, and you're the first to bring it up in this period. And I really think that's an interesting one. I haven't thought about that one, but you know, you definitely, you look at like Apple's founder, right? I mean, what an influence he had on guiding us toward a philosophy of connectedness through the internet. Any more? Because you're leaving one out that usually pops up quick. This pops right up. Yeah. And I love that answer because that was new last hour too, in this period too. We've never had that, never had it said in what, all these decades. That what about the reporters, the people who are writing the articles? Are they guiding the ship of state? Yeah, I think so. Political pundits, are they guiding the ship of state? Yeah. What do they produce? Thoughts and spew them out, right? That's a pundit. So I like that one a lot. And we never thought of that one before. And we never thought about this one before. And there's one that always comes out that you guys somehow aren't going to immediately, which is interesting. Yeah. Teachers and professors, it's that kind of their job. I mean, come on, in my role here, it's basically, you know, catalyst for you guys thinking about your philosophy and stuff, right? Whether it's politics or whether it's whatever. Anybody taking the philosophy class yet over at college? You guys taking that one? Oh, I have student after student come in and say that's their favorite class they take over there. I don't know. But I'd say that one's definitely, and that's one that we want to pull out. Is there another one that we need to pull out that would definitely fit this model? How about your religious leaders? Do they guide the ship of state? All through history, all the ancient civilizations, most countries, right? Maybe you're forgetting it, but there's no separation of church and politics. The definition of separation of church and state means the state can't discriminate against one religion over the other. It doesn't mean those religions can't be involved in our politics. Does religion have a big say in our politics? Of course it does, in this country and in any country. Particularly, let's throw out some examples: Iran and Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia. So definitely religious leaders have got to be included in this list. So now let's move on. The business class is easier to define, right? You guys understand that. It's anything that creates a gross national product, right? Now, the other one is the guardian class. That's pretty simple too. I mean, it's your armed forces, the branches we have, and we're blessed, of course, to have the finest military in the history of the world. We just do. But now let's play the game. You ready? Follow along. What happens if this military class suddenly becomes dominant over all the others? You get Sparta. Thank you for that. By the way, that's a classic example. And what happened to Sparta in the end? You know what happened? Because they didn't have this and they didn't have that, and they didn't have a religion that supported family life. They dwindled in numbers to the point where they became inconsequential. They basically destroyed themselves. That's a great example, Sparta, by the way. Can you give me another one? What countries today, by the way, you might need to know this in a future study guide, not this one, but one coming up. Yes, definitely that's North Korea. No question about it. And look at it, what an abysmal place that is. To me, that's a modern Sparta, frankly. It's the military oligarchy that runs that under the guise of this Kim Jong-un leader who doesn't dare cross him. But also, too, you have Egypt here. You have Myanmar. You have Pakistan. You have countries all over the world. The military is, well, if they rule, it's usually a group of generals called a junta, and you have what you call a military oligarchy. I think you had that in Spain under Franco. So let's move back. Let's see if I can get this to go. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's move back to this one. Let's take the business. Let's take, oh yeah, let's do the philosophers next. Okay, so let's take the philosopher class. And let's say they become like radically dominant. What do you get? What can happen? Some good examples of this. Or the philosopher class, right? By the way, does it produce a gross national product? No. It's got to be paid for out of the gross national product. The military has to be paid for out of this B class down here, this business class, merchant class, agricultural class. But when you get philosophers that are too much, are other areas neglected? And they are. And so you can have too many philosophers. It becomes top heavy. Let me give you an example. And it's one of those sad examples in history, but Tibet. Half the young men in Tibet were becoming monks and living in monasteries and whatever. And yes, they were able to support that, you know, through their constant donations and things like that. But when it came to China invading, they had no military response to speak of whatsoever. And the entire place was taken over, overrun completely with hardly a fight. And of course, it wasn't in their nature to fight anyway. And 500 monasteries were destroyed, completely blown up. And the Dalai Lama had to flee to India in hiding. So maybe you need a few military folks around, and maybe you need an economy that can support a more complex society. I don't know. But the other one I want to give you, let's go back. Hang on, let's do it again. Okay, sorry, I'm going to keep going here. Let's go back to this one. Is Iran. Iran became a theocracy in 1979. And what they did too, something very smart. So they wouldn't ever have to face the military again like they did under the former government. They created their own branch in the military called the Iranian Guard, National Guard. And this Iranian Guard was so indoctrinated and in bed with these political leaders that it became really, really a powerful thing. And it also grew, but in conjunction with this class here. Who now is going to struggle in this? This class here. And it happened. Iran went through some tough economic times just relatively recently, where people were pouring into the streets. Prices were haywire. They couldn't make the money they were in the past, and so they couldn't support all this. So the Iranian government literally had to back off and back down and change its policies a little bit to allow the producing class to produce. And that was relatively recent history. All right. Now, what happens when you get the business class becomes the overwhelming dominant? What happens then? If everything's for profit, the philosophers were replaced by the business leaders. I mean, philosophers that would give a counter argument. And we know of situations where the military gets privatized. Oh, how about this one? Prisons get privatized. We have companies now running a big chunk of our prisons. Did this come out in this class? Did we talk about this one? Came out in the other class, first period. So we have private prisons for profit where people are running the prison to make money. So they only make money if they have inmates. How's your parole system going to work in that regard? How's all this going to function? And there's even times when we've seen people who run these prisons are lobbying for laws that would increase their profits. Kind of scary, right? Think about this one. What if we took the vaccine and made it for profit? We are paying those companies billions of dollars, aren't we? We negotiated a price, I think it's like $25 a shot or something like that with Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. But here's the thing. What if it were for profit only and everybody was left to their own devices to get the vaccine? What would the vaccine rate be? It wouldn't work, would it? Because we'd never get anywhere close to herd immunity. And so there's that. But what if we turn all of our information, everything over to Mark Zuckerberg, who came up with an algorithm that said, anger and fear is what gets the most clicks and sells the most products and makes me the richest. So we're going to pursue anger and fear. So Americans are angry and fearful of each other and create that as a culture. And oh, by the way, the types of governments you get into this situation are plutocracies or oligarchies disguised as plutocracies, which was, by the way, one of Plato's biggest fears. So the ideal then is not the form of government so much as keeping a balance. A theocracy can keep this balance, a monarchy can keep this balance, an autocracy can keep this balance, and so can a democracy. But if they don't get balanced, then there's problems. Let's take a quick look at our vaccine history. I just wish I had better news for you. Overall, over the United States, there is good news. Look at this. We came down here from number of cases. We're looking at 172,000 a day. We're down to 62,000. This is a great moment across the nation. Mississippi, other states, the wave has passed. People either got vaccinated or they got sick and made it. And so we have more of our herd immunity, and the Delta variant looks like it's run its course a little bit. That is very good news. And so we should be very happy. We're the green line here, right? United States. Now, hopefully, and remember I'm recording, right? Utah, I thought we'd have that same news here. I thought we'd be having a little celebration here and doing the happy dance, but guess what? This is Idaho, by the way. Idaho is making a little progress finally. But you look at this, they've lost 3,346 people and have 1 million less citizens than we do in Utah. So obviously Utah, we've done better, there's no doubt. And their fully vaccinated rate is 46%. You increase that a little bit and you get Utah. And our vaccination rate, oh, guess what? We blew past 3,000 Utahns dying just in the last few weeks. We've hit a plateau. At 55% fully vaccinated, probably about 75% at least had the first shot, who knows? But we have not broken this curve yet. Not in cases, not in deaths, a little bit of an improvement here, but in the last few days, but it keeps going up and down and seesawing. Yesterday, we lost 8 people, and the numbers keep piling up. And the hospitalizations, and this is the part that was just updated, by the way, but doesn't that look a lot better? So let's give some credit to our nurses, right, who often aren't paid that much. But we went from 589 hospitalizations to the latest report is 410. And if we can now break that curve a little bit more and keep that going down to get below 100, we're going to give our hospitals a fighting chance to save more lives. Idaho, they're still at the 700 mark with less hospitals than we have and less staff. Anyway, but numbers matter there, don't they? 10% more vaccination. And then, of course, a lot of people getting sick and getting better. Most people get better, don't they? Thankfully. Our vaccinations, we're looking at what? About 6,400 a day now. Yeah. Okay. The only reason I bring that up is because it kind of fits into our lecture here a little bit. Biden was the great philosopher of the let's give the vaccination to everybody free philosophy, pay for it out of taxes, whatever, to guide the ship of state to save the economy. This whole idea of letting people feel safe to leave their homes and go eat dinner and go out and shop and whatever is important for the economy. So the philosopher is saying to get a good economy, and by the way, can you have a great military without a good economy? You can't for long. We saw this with the Soviet Union. They had this, we thought, world-class military, but they weren't producing enough to support it. And when the Cold War ended, we sent people to, make sure we were all agreeing to our treaty obligations. And I had a friend, general, who lived out by me before he passed away, sadly. But he was one of those inspectors. And he said, you know what? The first line of the Soviet defense was pretty good. Their planes, everything else, but they had no spare parts and no even tires for their planes. How long will a war last if you don't have spare parts? And so basically, they were like Sparta. They exhausted their economy, overdid their defense, and as a result, floundered. Can the United States maintain the top tier military in the world without the #1 economy in the world? Maybe the two go together. And we've got to guide this ship of state to a good place. Now, last time we shared with you these idea of the elements of power. Now, a lot of you missed this question in the last study guide, mainly because probably you didn't go back and listen to the lecture, but I'm putting it here again for you. But don't those bubbles correspond? They do. The elements of power, you have to have political and philosophical leadership where the country's pulling in the same direction. You have to have a competent military adequate to your own defenses and also to keep your community safe. And then you have to have an economic supply and food chain that's up to the task. Or it doesn't matter your form of government, you're going to suffer. Let's go ahead and play this little clip from yesterday's news about the supply chain. Okay, so here we go.
And here's a sobering thought. Some economists believe the supply chain bottleneck could keep prices high throughout next year. Tonight, CBS's Carter Evans reports the backlog isn't just hurting consumers, it's driving some businesses to the brink.
We should not have empty shelves. That's not a good sign.
Ed O'Brien's Denver company makes some of the most popular outdoor toys on the market, but it's on track for a sales decline of 40%.
You don't have a demand problem. People want to buy your product.
Yeah, it's a supply problem.
That's because he has no idea when his toys will arrive from China.
We still have containers that we placed orders for March and we have not seen, and we don't know where they're at.
And because of the huge port backlog, he's paying more for shipping than ever.
The cost for a container shipping out of China was $6,500 from China to Denver.
How much is it now?
It's $30,000.
How much have you lost this year?
Did you hear that? Now, his whole business is based upon things made in China that he's probably designed and sent there, and they're making them for him. By the way, I know a lot of people do that. I know people making millions of dollars, designing products here for the American market consumer, Christmas things and whatever else happens to be. They go to China a year in advance, work with a Chinese factory to get it made and shipped so they can have it here in time, usually October, to fill all the stores, okay? Because China's where all this stuff gets made. We're talking about toys and things like that. And other countries too. It might be Vietnam, it might be, Philippines, whatever. From $6,000 to $36,000 for the container. We have a supply chain problem.
We have faced over $2 million of unexpected expenses.
He
Wow.
cannot raise prices on deals he's already made.
I'm scrambling for friends and family money, banks, everything else to get additional money just to keep the business going.
Nationwide, suppliers cannot get items to stores fast enough because there's a shortage of warehouse workers and truck drivers with more than 500,000 job openings.
Companies almost certainly won't be able to fill all the roles they hoped it this holiday season.
Andy Kemp,
500,000 jobs available in trucking and shipping and all this kind of stuff that aren't being filled right now.
Challenger with outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas says companies are trying to entice workers. Amazon is offering signing bonuses up to $3,000 and starting wages up to $22 an hour. Walmart.
Wow, that's how you know they're getting desperate.
You are working right now and you're a manager, say, an assistant manager at McDonald's, making probably 17 an hour. Why don't you take the bonus and go to work for them? Because you're a proven manager, you're a proven commodity. Why would anybody take a $12 an hour job right now when Amazon's hiring at those wages? This month has been called the Great Resignation. This is why people are leaving. This is why there's 200,000 jobs available, because guess what? We have a shortage of workers. And it's all supply and demand. And right now, the wealthy companies can pay exorbitant wages. What about that poor guy in Colorado? He can't pay that. He's already 2 million behind because the containers now containing his products are costing so much. Let's take a listen. Amazon's not the only one.
Walmart and Target are offering free college tuition.
What it's mostly
What? Target's giving you free college tuition now? Run down to Target, get a job, people. Take your life into your own hands. Good part-time job, see what they'll give you. Military will help pay for your education too. So are you working for $7.25 an hour, or even 10, or even 12?
doing is hiring away workers from their competitors. And that's why we're seeing some of the highest quits rates that the country's ever recorded.
Why are people quitting? Because they're finding other jobs. This happened to Henry Ford. Henry Ford had to compete against other car companies for good workers. So you know what he did? He doubled everybody's salary, and especially gave them a bonus if they didn't show up to work drunk. Everybody wanted to work for Ford. And the old Model Ts came off the line just and made him a fortune. But, you know, he was willing to set the pace in the industry, and all the other auto companies had to follow suit to get the workers.
In order for Ed O'Brien's business to survive, he says he has no choice but to raise prices in the future.
I would say at least 25% across our board, at least.
And Carter Evans joins us now live from Denver. And Carter, it's so interesting to hear what small businesses are suffering from, and what does it mean for consumers?
Well, it means more expensive items for us as well because small businesses just can't absorb price increases this big. They gotta pass them on to shoppers, and that's why experts are telling us that sticker shock is going to continue well into next year. Nora?
Your report.
Welcome to one of the after effects of the COVID epidemic. It's changed our economy. So now the question is, what are our political and philosophical leaders going to do in order to break up that? Oh, one thing Biden did do is he got LA and Long Beach to go to 24 hours a day schedule. And they're changing rules now for what training you need and how quickly you can become a driver, because that's not an easy job, right? You have to have a certificate, you have to be trained in it. And so he's trying to break that bottleneck up. But this supply chain really, really matters. If our economy struggles, can we support an expensive military? We can't. And also too, it can hurt our democracy as people lose faith in whatever the government is. It doesn't matter what the government is. It could be a theocracy. Look at Iran. They didn't take care of their business class. They had protests in the streets. They adjusted. We've got to do the same thing. And yeah, so a lot of people want to blame all of the problems that we have right now on the former president, which is really misguided. That would be like blaming everything on, oh, I do blame everything on Bush, don't I? And you guys pushed back and said, no, that's wrong, right? And you're right to push back. I think that was great that you did. But you can't blame everything on Obama, and you can't blame everything on Trump, and you can't blame everything on Biden. Maybe we have more systemic cultural issues. Maybe the fact is that this bubble here has gotten way out of control. And maybe it needs to be reined in a bit. Or maybe this one got out of control and needs to be reined in a bit. And we did kind of rein this one in because we ended a war, didn't we? Which means less costs in the military. Maybe we got to get these balances back. And it's not one person. It's a whole society that has to come to grips. Remember, democracy is one of its biggest weaknesses, and I'm a big fan of democracy. I don't want that last lecture to go unmarred. It's important to have that discussion, but we should do it with every form of government, right? And we don't have time for that. But I'm a big fan of democracy, as you'll see as we go forward. But nevertheless, it is subject to the whims of the masses. And the masses can be easily influenced by lots of different philosophers and philosophies. That's why you're doing the reading on factions. Because it's one thing to think and disagree and have moments of conversation and all that. It's quite a different thing to weaponize those ideas against each other. And that's what Madison warned against. When you look at that essay, find the thesis statement and then look at his answer. And remember, when you get to the end, when he's talking about a Republican form of government, he's not talking about a Republican Party. It didn't exist. Or a Federalist Party. When he uses that word, it didn't exist either. This is prior to any of that. He's talking about a form of government. And federalism is a form of government where you spread power out between national and local. So that's kind of important. But Aristotle hit it right. Whatever you choose as your form of government, you have to have laws, rules, and justice. And if you don't have that, then you don't have a country. If we don't have free, unfettered, fair elections, our democracy will fail and we'll have to have an alternative form of government. And I don't know what that would be. And that kind of maybe is a bit scary to me. Maybe you're ready for a different form of government, one that's faster, one that makes decisions quicker. Maybe you want to be more like China that can make decisions quick. Maybe you want to be more like some other countries. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's seen as fair and that these forces all come together in a balanced way. But I'm a big fan of democracy. I'm also a big fan of freedom. But here's the deal. Freedom in America has become such a trite thing. We don't even think about what it really, we've had enough discussions, you guys know. You know, everybody has a different sense of freedom. For example, let's just take the idea of masks, right? For one group, masks, wearing them is freedom from COVID. For another group, it's freedom to take it off so you can breathe better. So it's not an interruption in your life. By the way, that irritates me behind the ear, something fierce. I can't stand it when my glasses fog up. So who's right? Well, the problem in the United States is everybody's right about everything, right? So in our state, it's up to you. You get to choose. It's a matter of choice. So we equate freedom with choice. Okay, that's fine. That's our culture. But Aristotle had a different play on it. You ready for his play on it? When he said, what is freedom? He said, freedom is truth. Freedom is truth. There's even an Old Testament scripture that says, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. The freedom comes from knowing the truth. Here's the deal. We also had this discussion with the Socratic method where we said, well, wait a minute, how can you know that anything is true? Remember that debate? That was all set up for this moment. Can you know anything is true? How can you know the truth? When your media has so many, well, look at this. I mean, this is classic, right? This whole class, this whole group right here is finding some truth right now. They're finding what's important to them. Right? And that's okay. That's fine. Do it. Finding your truth. But how can you know anything you just looked at on your phone or on your computer or anything else is actually true? Or is leading you down a different path? What can you really know? Is there anything you can really truly know?
Socrates coined this phrase, the only thing that I know is that I know nothing.
But he's going to be countered by Descartes. He's going to be countered by Aristotle. It's a great phrase, and I'm glad you said it, because you need to understand that that was his mode. His mode was to try to confuse everything so people ask the questions to really understand what they didn't know, right? So good job there, A+. Take an EQ essay off for that one. Then they put Socrates classes, there's an EQ essay off. But is there anything you can truly know?
Your entire world is just based off of the perspective you come from. So if you believe yourself to be free, there's truth you see, then you live life on their guys.
I love the thought, the perception is reality. If you believe you're free, you are. If you don't believe you're free, I mean, that goes back to, who's that Holocaust victim that wrote that book? Oh, that was really said that. I mean, it's a great, great source. I'm going to take it one element though further. Can you know about spike proteins? And can you know that our DNA technology can take the spike protein and replicate an immune response so that COVID is less deadly to you? Can you know that? Can you prove it in a lab? Can you measure it? Let's take another one. Can you know at what time the sun's going to come over that mountain in the morning? Can you prove it every day? All you have to do is look at your phone. It'll tell you exactly when it's going to happen. Do you know how long to the millisecond it takes the Earth to go around the sun? Do you know for a fact that the Earth is on its axis? Do you know for a fact when fall is, when winter is? And you know the definitions of those, right? The equinox versus the shortest and longest days of the year. Can you know that? And you can prove it with what? Mathematics. You can measure it. Here's one for you. Can you prove how gravity works? Yes, you can. And who was the guy that did that? Isaac who? Isaac Newton, right? So if you're Jeff Bezos and you want to send a little play capsule up to space and back and take all your buddies and friends on a little hop into space and back, do you have to know what gravity's impact will be on your thrusters and what you need to escape its pull? Yes, you do. And can you know it precisely? Can you guys do the bridge building contest? You know why that's such an important experiment? Because can you know exactly when you build a bridge or design it, the weight it's going to be able to take? And even predict how long it might even last? You can know things. Now here's one, hope you're paying attention here, but can I lift a 2,000-pound ball over there? If there's a 2,000-pound ball in the corner, can I lift it with one finger? Yes, I can. I get a fulcrum and a lever long enough, and all I have to do is go like this. It's called what? Basic physics. Of course, I can't go up, oh, that we know that, that's physics too. I can know I can't do it that way, but I can certainly create a tool that will do it for me with a lot of help. You can know things. You can know some truths. And you can prove them again and again. And that's called science. Aristotle believed in natural law. Look, he was a physicist. He was a biologist, a psychologist, a zoologist. He studied all sorts of governments and other kinds of things. He established the foundation of modern science as the tradition we see in Western civilization, Western Europe, and in Islamic civilization too, because it's going to spread to the Islamic civilization. So this guy, Aristotle, is the foundation of science. That's what separates him from Plato and Socrates. He's the father of logic. He's the father of philosophical ethics, advocating moderation and personal behavior. He studied and designed political systems too. And he said, you can know what good laws are and what good government is. If there are natural laws of the universe like gravity, the rotation of the planets, the physics that allows me with a lever and a fulcrum to lift that 2,000-pound ball, can I also know what natural laws are that everybody should sign on to? And his answer was, of course. So let's look at natural law. By the way, this is one of the most important concepts for the next study guide. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to have to listen to this. Learn what natural law is. Okay. One natural law. You got wolves circling the elk. What's going to happen?
They become friends and have a tea party.
Natural law. Exactly. Exactly right. Whereas humans, of course, are less predictable. So you need to have these legal systems that are deemed to be fair. And look, any society that has fair legal systems and laws that people can agree to that are natural is going to succeed, whether it be a theocracy, a monarchy, or a democracy. According to what we just did with Plato, right? Now you may have a disagreement with that, but let's go ahead and take a step further. Is there a law that we can all agree on right now?
Don't kill people.
Thou shalt not kill. Goes back to Moses, right? By the way, other societies had it too. Hammurabi's code. Thou shalt not kill. Time out. Then what about war? Is then thou shalt not kill abrogated? Wait a minute. If thou shalt not kill, then why do half the states in the United States still practice the death penalty? Okay, so, well, the argument always is, it's a deterrent against future crime. Is it? It's not. All the data suggests that usually murder and things like that are crimes of passion. I look at the Petito case that just happened, right? Or because somebody's got a very serious mental illness or something like that. And then it doesn't seem to be any sort of deterrent. So why do it? Most of the countries in the world have already abandoned it. The United States and China are two of the, oh, and Iran and Saudi Arabia. They're of the few countries that still practice the death penalty. Thou shalt not kill. But here's the problem with thou shalt not kill. The problem is Tibet. Peaceful, would never want to fight anybody, but they got overrun. And 500 monks were killed and their monasteries destroyed. So we can all agree, though, that it is a natural law. If everybody obeyed "thou shalt not kill," would the world be a better place? So that should be a goal we should go for, right? We shouldn't abandon the goal just because there are exceptions that happen. But let's do another one. "Thou shalt not steal." Why is that such an important thing, especially in this time in history? Because people are coming in and looting. Villagers, you guys studied during history. What are they stealing? They're coming in and stealing whatever this family has out there in a little village, and they're taking all of their food and grain with them. Which is what? It's the death penalty for that family. Because the grain they're storing, part of it's to eat. The other part of it is to save, no matter what happens, no matter how hungry you get. You can't throw away your seed because the seed has got to be planted next year, or you're going to starve next year too. So to take their seed corn, or their, as we call it in America, but their seed for your own purposes, is to condemn them to death. "Thou shalt not kill." That's why it's such a big deal. But let me ask you this. Is it okay to steal from a big company like Walmart? They're rich. They can afford it. Is that ethical? Why and why not? You got a family, family's hungry, no food in the house. You steal some milk, some formula, and maybe a few candy bars in your pocket, and you walk out of Walmart. Is that the right and ethical thing for a parent to do? But at the same token, it increases costs for everybody. Walmart has to absorb that cost. They don't absorb it by cutting the profits. They absorb it by passing the costs on to us. And by the way, they lose a lot. It's called shrinkage. They get this much product. They know they're only going to sell this much because this is going to be lost. And they have to build it into their plan. Now, on that particular one, the United States has an answer. No one in this country should go hungry. Are you ready for this one? Here's how we deal with it. It's called food stamps. We have a program that if you lack the resources for a proper diet and WIC for pregnant moms, you can basically go in and we'll give you the food. We're the largest producer of surplus food in the world. Nobody in America should go hungry. And every one of you is benefiting from that right now. With COVID and everything else, Biden built into the American Recovery Plan, free lunch for every student. How many are getting free lunch right now? Why? Because every student deserves a good meal, at least one per day. What happens if you come to school hungry? How's your learning? We know that. We can do the data. We know the research. Feeding children in school helps their academic performance. And it helps them succeed and pursue that happiness that we talk about so much. So "thou shalt not steal" is a good one. And there's ways to prevent stealing by creating programs to help people. Now, we've named some, we've gone through, but I have to hit this next one. For Americans, sadly, we take this attitude. Freedom is to do whatever you want, as long as you're willing to accept the consequences. Every year I've taught this class, that's the first thing people say when I issue the question, and this year I'm just going to lecture through it. No, freedom is not the right to do whatever you want when you accept the consequences, because the consequences of your actions could be to take away the rights and freedoms of somebody else. I can speed through an intersection because I want to, as long as I'm willing to accept the consequences of what? Maybe running over somebody, smashing into their car. Other people are accepting your consequences. Freedom is knowing the truth and not accepting the consequences. If you speed through a red light, that's a no-no. There's a law against that for a reason, because the consequences are so severe. Freedom is minimizing the negative effects of lawless behavior. It's figuring out what the laws should be to minimize the negative effects on everybody. That's what freedom is. It's knowing the truth and minimizing the consequences of that. What happens if the supply chain shuts down? How does this country function? Whoa, we better figure that one out. We better have a plan for that. we better have a fully funded FEMA if there's an earthquake in this valley. We know there'll be an earthquake. It's a matter of when. Are we ready for it? And can we minimize the negative effects by preparing now? Comment in the back.
I have something to say about the law.
Please do.
I say that if the punishment for breaking the law is paying a fee, that law only exists for poor people because the rich can pay it without having to travel.
Is there a discrepancy if it's just a fine? Listen, I know people, they don't care if they park in the wrong spot. They're just gonna pay. So they park wherever they want and they know it's gonna be, well, who's the guy, the founder of Apple? Come on, what's his name? Parked wherever he wanted. No, Apple. Steve who? Parked wherever he wanted and he just mounted up all of these bills and he just paid them off. So the law didn't what? Didn't apply to him, did it? But yet his employees, see the deal? I agree with that one. I think that's a consequence. Maybe we should have fines tiered based on your income level. So guess what, Steve? If you want to park illegally, it's $100,000 for you, but your employee, it's $200 because you make 360 times more than they do. That would get his attention, right? But a $250 fine for him, that's lunch. That's lunch money. I love that one. I think that's really, really a great one. I wish we had more time. We had more hands, but we're out of time.